together, really good friends. And the thing that I saw every single day, I saw him putting in the work, jogging around the neighborhood, going to his house, seeing him work out. And I was like, oh, snaps, this guy is normal. I didn't understand this as a kid, but I'm like, this guy is a normal guy. And so that moment made me realize that normal people can still make extraordinary dreams happen if you just decide to dedicate, put in the work, and be real with yourself. And so as a 4, 5, 6-year-old, looking back, I understood that process, and I've carried it with me my whole entire life.
So take us back to those battles with your brothers. So you being the younger one, what was that like? Is that where a lot of your competitive nature came from?
1,000%. I just told my brother today, I was like, man, I'm gonna pay you back still for busting my nose. We'll have boxing matches with gloves and they're beating me up. I'm going against both of them, like fight one brother, then the next brother I fight. I'm like, why don't y'all go against each other? And I'll never forget, my nose got busted and my mother hid those boxing gloves forever, but they would double team me. I have a video, my wife and my son laughs at it because I'm on the curve crying and pouting because they won't throw me the ball because we're playing sideline kill, which I run up and they're still hitting me. So they taught me how to be tough. They taught me how to be resilient, and they taught me how to really grind for what I wanted. So I'm grateful for them. And even though at the time I feel like they were being hard on me, what they were doing was teaching me a set of principles and, as you like to say, standards to live by in order to make my dream come true. So I always attribute my athletic success to them because I want to beat them more than anything else.
And now I know as you age, you're making sure that you look like a linebacker these days instead of a wide receiver, just in case at any family meals, any wrestling matches break out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm bigger than my brothers now for sure. Like I'm probably about 20, 30 pounds bigger than them. So, it's a little bit different now for sure.
I'm telling you, when we met, that's what I said to you. I'm like, man, you could be a linebacker now if you went back to the league. Now, one of the things about the NFL, and a lot of individuals don't realize this. So I was really a basketball player. That's what a lot of guys tease me, like, man, how do you start doing all this work in collegiate and pro football? You were a hooper. And so what a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't know this until I started working in the NFL, is back when you were playing, there were rookie symposiums. And in the rookie symposiums, they would tell the players, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than playing in the NFL. Like, that's how rare it is to take the talent that God gave you and to take it to the place that you took it to. What I want to focus on is not success that you had on the field. I'd rather talk about the adversity, which is how you really helped shape people to understand where that authentic power lies. So you have this dream, you reach this pinnacle that people in a lifetime, better chance of getting struck by lightning. And that's what you walk into, that's what you embrace. And then there was a period of time, Trent, it ended for you. But when it ended for you, you had this bright light and epiphany where you basically took out a phone, you start filming videos, and rehab time started. Can you take us back to that dark time for you when you had to say goodbye to football, but it was really the opening of all these lives that you've touched and you continue to touch all over the world?
Yeah. It was the hardest time of my life up to a few years ago. And the reason it was hard, I like to explain to people that, don't play sports. Just imagine losing your everything, the everything that you thought was the world since you were 4 years old. I was programmed since a kid to be an athlete. Of course, my parents made sure I take care of my grades and they made sure I knew that I was more than an athlete, but I didn't want to hear that. All I wanted to do was either play football, basketball, baseball, and make it to the league. So when that was over, I felt as if my life was over. It's like, what am I supposed to do? I never worked a 9 to 5. I mean, in college, if you try to do an internship, they're going to laugh at you. So what do I do with my life? And a lot of athletes get to that point. And I remember being in my parents' house in my room. And I just got cut for like the 8th time from the Seattle Seahawks. Actually, the Washington Redskins at the time, Commanders now. And I remember looking around my room at all the trophies. My roommate, one of my best friends that just committed suicide, Tristan, my son, he was 1 year old at the time. And I remember asking this question, like, is this it? Is it over for me?
Well, you said this, right? And then I love the situations where it's like, you know what? It'd be really good if we had you. Let me see if I can manipulate something so that we can get this done, right? Because that was what I was the king of. I could manipulate situations so that it would benefit a player all the time, or benefit my own career or salary, So not having to do that in these situations is just a clear message on both ways.
And do you feel that's why you were able to, and you're like me, right? I'm not putting the pads on, but you do know there's a value that you brought to that building. There's a key contribution that you were able to make by caring, loving on those players, and holding those standards. What was that like for you to be able to leave Alabama and then be able to see for you that the values that you stood on and the beliefs that you had, that they didn't waver, you didn't buckle, you didn't try to change, you stayed true to the things that made you you. How unique was that for you to then become part of two national championships at Georgia with those same beliefs, those same standards, the things that make Scott Cochran who he is?
See, and I've never thought of it that way. This is when I got to Georgia, I told Kirby, I said, hey, you have what you need in the building. You have good coaches, you have great players. What you don't have is what I need to start really infiltrating on. And we started a thing called skull sessions, which basically we called them at Bama too. Your first meeting with the player were skull sessions. So I think figuring out, and like year one, I told him, I'm like, we're not going to win this year. And he's like, what? Because I brought you over here. I'm like, listen, what I need to get done with this team, we can't get done. And it was COVID too. So like maybe that had something to do with it, but we just needed time, right? Like we didn't start the mental conditioning program at Bama till 2008. 2007, we didn't have it. And in 2008, we implemented it, right? At LSU, we implemented it in 2001. It took a year to kind of feel it out. I implemented it as soon as I got there, but I knew it wasn't going to be. I could tell in the first game that I coached there that the guys weren't ready. I noticed small things that most people wouldn't recognize, but I noticed mentality, conversation, what they did. Looking at the scoreboard was one. What are we up by? What are we down by? And so I knew going into the offseason after the 2020 season that it was like, this is the year where this stuff has to click. So it is when I really dove into the leadership. I really we took the leadership off campus and did the same thing I did at Bama. We did those things. We kind of got them gelled together so that right hand knew what the left hand was doing and they could keep each other accountable. But I never saw it as my own personal standard. I saw it as, what's interesting is that I saw it as special teams is pretty easy. So this is a piece I really love. Now let me dive even more into that piece. And I say it's easy. It's football. For all the people out there listening to this, and you listen to coaches that sleep in their office, that do all this stuff, it ain't that difficult. The game hasn't changed that much. It's just football.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like coming in here each and every day, everyone understands the importance of what it means to be a Miami Dolphin, but also what it means to be a family. I think that's something that Coach McDaniel harps on a lot, is the importance of the family aspect. When you take a look at our locker room, you see a lot of guys where, we have a good mix of, obviously rookies, but veterans that are, some are 4 years, some are 5 years, some are 10 plus years. When you have that kind of experience coupled with this new wave of rookies that are coming in from the NIL era and things like that, there really tends to be a unique mesh that happens to where, and, selfishly, I kind of, dab this up to player engagement to where we're finding creative ways to connect our locker room, between rookies and veterans, new guys, from free agency or, guys that have been veterans on the same team, just finding unique ways to connect the guys into what seems more like a family than it does a team. And I think there's a unique difference there. Like as a team, like, yeah, you can play well, but do you guys play well together? Is there an individualistic mentality that happens? But when you're a family that plays well together, I think it just adds a different dynamic. And when you're having the family mentality come from the top down, everyone feels it, so everyone enjoys coming in every day. No one really sweats the blood, sweat, and tears that you have to put in. But what I love about this locker room is like they care about each other. There isn't that individualistic mentality. Everyone loves connecting with each other. I'm watching guys that are spending their off season still doing community work together.
Well, yeah, I think about Alec Ingold. I mean, one of the best human beings I've ever. I mean, it's just he's an extraordinary human being.
Yeah.
That in your locker room makes a difference.
Yeah.
Giving back, serving a holistic individual.
Yeah. And when you're able to have a leader like Alec Ingold doing that and be so open, honest, and upfront about it, like it clears the way for other guys to be like, yeah, I want to do that too. We have guys all over that locker room that do so much and oftentimes goes unnoticed because a lot of that, you're not going to see that on the bottom ticker on ESPN. That might not be the highlight, the first thing Monday morning on the networks. But I see that and I'm like, that's what makes a difference in the locker room. Guys who, yes, they take football seriously, but at the same time, they connect with their players and they connect with the community. And, South Florida's waited a long time to see something special from the Dolphins. So I think what people are feeling is that different. It comes from right here, them understanding this is a different team. And I think the difference they're talking about is that family aspect, that they can feel how closely everyone is, from staff, coaches, players, like everyone's locked in because we all have the same goal in mind, but it just feels different because now, like, I think we're starting to see it more amongst the players, the coaches, and the staff.
So I'd love to finish this episode of The Burn, not talking about the Miami Dolphins, not talking about players, talking about you.
Yeah.
There's a electric nature of your smile where you take advantage of every day.
Mm-hmm.
And from when the transition took place, when Caleb was starting to realize he was going to have new opportunities, whether it be with Pack or now the amazing things he's doing with the Spurs, when he brought you in, there was just an energy. Like when you smiled, it was like, man, I'm going to attack this.
Yeah.
Where does your fire for life come from? Where did the discipline come from? Because I think a lot of people don't realize, and Caleb and I used to talk about this, it's hard to do what you do.
Very.
You're not leaving this at 5 o'clock. It's like,
not at all.
This is a 24-hour opportunity you've signed up for.
Yeah.
Where does the discipline, aside from relationships, I know that's important to you, but what are you built on? What is your burn? What is your fire? Where does that discipline come from for you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, again, I didn't know, prior to this, I was at UM doing student development. I didn't know that existed until I got to UM. I didn't know player engagement in the NFL existed until Caleb called me. And I remember it to this day. He called me like noon on a Tuesday and was like, we chopped it up for a couple minutes. Like, are you free at 2:00 for an interview? I wasn't, but I made myself free for the interview, which was that same day. And then at the end of that interview, he was like, we'll come up to the facility on Thursday, and spent the entire day there doing interviewing in person. Called me the following Tuesday, let me know that they were going to make a decision. Called the following Thursday with an offer and signed my contract Friday. So it took 8 days, it's the fastest job process I've ever been a part of. But I say that because every new transition that I've had in my life I was transitioning into a place that I was never familiar with, that I didn't know existed. Again, student athlete development, didn't know that was a thing until I got to UM. Player engagement, didn't know this existed until Caleb called me. So the fire that I have is I wake up every day thinking something new could happen today. Whether if it's a new conversation, somebody new that I meet, a new idea that could help me help somebody else. I'm born, thrive, and bred to be built for whatever comes next. And the fact that I never know what it is, that's what excites me.
Here comes Spud Webb, and I'm like, okay, so he can dunk. I'm like, what does it take to dunk? Well, you got to work hard. I was like, well, I'll do whatever it takes. So I was the kid that would see something, have a limiting belief, and then see someone else do it. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. It's like that story of Roger Bannister, right? With the 4-minute mile. And once he did it, everybody else could do it. Sometimes you just need to be able to get around somebody else that has done it. And then you visualize it. And then you go ahead and do it. And I was never afraid of hard work. And, growing up, again, it was just, I was surrounded by a kid that would see something, have a limiting belief, and then see someone else do it. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. It's like that story of Roger Bannister, right? With the 4-minute mile. And once he did it, everybody else could do it. Sometimes you just need to be able to get around somebody else that has done it. And then you visualize it. And then you go ahead and do it. And I was never afraid of hard work. And, growing up, again, it was just, I was surrounded by other athletes. And I always just thought, man, I want to be the best. I don't want to be lagging behind. I don't want to be second best. The second best sucks. And, I was fortunate to have strong male role models, the coaches, be okay with that. Like, they were all about winning too. Everything was competitive. My middle school gym teacher, still alive, his name was Ron Howard. This man played tight end for the Seahawks and the Dallas Cowboys and had a Super Bowl ring. So imagine being 13 years old and your gym teacher's got a Super Bowl ring. And everybody's looking at the Super Bowl ring. You know what I'm looking at, Ben? I'm looking at his fingers mangled like this. Because he played in the 70s, man. So his fingers are like this. So he would talk and he'd be like, so what you got to do? And I thought he was just trying to be like cool. No, man, his hands are messed up. So I realized everything comes with a price. And that's okay because he's got the ring. And I thought, I want that. I want to be pro. I want to be pro at something. And in fact, when I was interviewed after I got my Division I scholarship my senior year to the University of Denver, I was interviewed by the Seattle Times and they said, you already have high hopes to do something in hoops. What are your thoughts? And I said, well, I don't know about the NBA, but I'm going to be pro at something. And that was a godsend, man, because I know that I was never afraid of hard work. I was always being competitive at every little thing. Who could do the fastest this? Who could do the best that? Like, that's just what mattered back then. And I still think it matters today. And that's what, when I was introduced to bodybuilding, it was the perfect sport for me because it was all about just the effort that I was willing to put forth. You could spot me, but that's not getting the job done. You can encourage me, but I still got to eat those meals. I still have to be willing to do the work when no one else is watching. And that's something I know you preach about every day.
Oh, we are going to talk about that, but I got to make one more hoop story before we get into that and Breaking Olympia, the Phil Heath story and this amazing documentary that you all better watch it. I'm going to put links to it, clips to it. If you don't want to buy it, I'll buy it for you. Like I didn't rent it. I bought the thing. I'm like, I haven't even watched it yet. I'm like, this is my guy. I'm purchasing because I will watch this multiple times over. It's that. And it was even better than that. But before we get there, there's one story you shared with me, which is really unique because sometimes I think when I talk about this concept of the burn and people hear my mom's story, they're like, I could understand that. Like you're fighting to continue to write her story every day. And some people have that pain. And then other people, they're like, well, I've never had anything happen to where I figured out what that burn was. And part of your burn, and you shared this amazing story with me about your coach who got mad at you for not dunking the basketball, who lit a fire. And that to me, that's part of the burn. Like he helped you find this fire inside of you. You got to tell us that story before we start talking about that 7-time Mr. Olympia body of yours.
Oh, man. So shout out to Coach Bethia at Rainier Beach High School, which, they've got a lot of great champions that have come out of there. It's got 9 state titles. I mean, it's phenomenal. But, I was always really athletic. And my biggest thing, being under 6 feet, was to jump high.
The message I have for you that I had to come to you in real time. Fun to be able to do it from the Dolphins team hotel for this episode of The Burn. But also I wanted to deliver this in real time because of a lesson that was reiterated to me through the fight of the Kansas State Wildcats. And a lesson for each and every single one of us in our lives that when you face challenge and adversity, it's oftentimes your greatest opportunity to find out how strong you can be. Many of you know, but for those of you that don't know, I'm the mental performance coach for the Kansas State Wildcats. I'm in my 6th season with Kansas State. Also did this work for Alabama for 5 years and 2 national championships with Coach Saban. Wound up at Kansas State after 4 years of doing this work for Coach Kleiman and 3 national championships at North Dakota State. So this is my 10th year working with Coach Kleiman.
So we've been through lots of challenge and adversity over these 10 years working together. But 2 weeks ago, on a Saturday night in Provo, Utah, we had one of the toughest losses of those 10 years. We went out to BYU, both teams undefeated, 3-0. Kansas State Wildcats ranked 13th in the country. And I never care about rankings during the season. I paint the picture for you for perspective. The rankings really only matter for the fans. I always say until we played every game on our schedule, and then the opportunity to earn the playoff games, the opportunity to earn our bowl games, until every game is done and we see zeros, I don't care where we are ranked. You can tell us after we've completed every single one of those plays, every single one of those games. But I just share that for perspective. So it's two undefeated teams for a 60-minute fight in Provo, Utah. For those of you that know what happened in that game, or for those of you that watch that game, and I always appreciate the love and support of the Wildcats, we've created a larger fan base because of so many of you, because of my work with the Wildcats, you choosing to wear purple and to cheer and to root for our young men in Manhattan, Kansas. But this was a tough game. This was a challenging game. The game, while on the sideline, almost felt like it was a bad dream. Almost everything bad that could have happened, happened. BYU special teams muffs a punt. Ball goes all the way back to their 1-yard line. Typically fumbles that we pick up and we run it into the end zone to create points. They pick it up and run it 99 yards for a touchdown. Our star running back ended up having the second fumble of his career. Ball picked up, run into the end zone for another touchdown. Interceptions, tough plays. We had a challenging time putting the ball in the end zone for the first time in over 11 games. It was like a bad dream. We're questioning, what are we watching? And you go through those games and you take a hard loss. And when the game is over, just like for you, when you face challenge and adversity, you have to often look at yourself in the mirror. When it's over, when you see zeros at the end of your day, maybe you're competing for something, you're challenging yourself for something in business, in life, in sports, and then you end up falling short and you've got to look yourself in the mirror, and it's an opportunity to take ownership. And that's what Coach Kleiman did that night in the locker room. He said, so what, now what? He challenged every player, every coach, every member of the organization. Look yourself in the mirror and figure out the next level of ownership that you can take. What more can you do? So take a quick pause and ask yourself that question wherever you are in your year right now. September the 30th. We're getting ready to enter the fourth quarter, the final 25% of your year. Where are you right now? If you're ahead of where you wanted to be, don't you dare be seduced by success. Keep connecting to that burn every single day. Keep stacking days. Keep hammering prize fighter days and keep winning, because the byproduct is continuing to win at very high levels. But if we get seduced by our success, we pull back from our habits, you will stop winning. And for those of you that are behind, so what, now what? Now is the time to take ownership and to recognize often the greatest parts of a fight in a business year are in that last quarter, that last 25%.
For those parents listening, you get one or the other. There ain't much in between. You're either going to pour belief into your kids, or you're going to pour pain into your kids' hearts. And I really wanted to capture how beautiful that is, that mother was that source of worthiness for you, which had to have showed up when you would go to just the belief you would have in yourself from hearing those words in your home.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, like I said, walking into a space and being a Black woman and now being in a space of doing well, okay? Like I'm going to walk into spaces and I'm even getting on planes. You walk into business class or first class and you're like, only Black woman in here. Going into a meeting and you're like, only Black woman in here. I'm okay with wearing that on my shoulders because I saw my mom do it. I'm okay with understanding that you'll have a conversation and they kind of come in like, hey. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, oh my God, now I'm worthy because I'm Olympic champion. I was worthy when I first walked in here, And so, like I said, just knowing that, from the beginning, and now with my daughter, My oldest. So I have two. Zoe, she's the little one. She's the boss baby. I'm going to be there just to say, I agree with you. That girl, she's walking out to the world like, I'm here. I'm like, okay, Zoe, she's just at one. I can tell she's boss baby. My oldest, she is it's one of those like beautiful souls. Like she'll see someone that kind of like gets hurt. And she's like, Mommy, they're hurt. We have to help. She's that kid. And I'm like, I want to I want to keep that just innocence for as long as I can. And something else that I'm very clear, because you were talking about social media in their faces. Yes, she's on my phone. She looks at it. But I tell her all the time, I'm very okay with you getting bored. And people ask, like, what do you mean by that? She doesn't need to be entertained every 2 seconds of like, I need something here. I'm like, no, I need her to be okay in her own space with nothing else going on, and to say, you know what, I'm going to play with these rocks and draw on the concrete and create my own fun. I just need her to be okay with her from the age of 5 all the way up. So if you're in a classroom and someone doesn't want to play with you, I love to draw, so I'll draw right now. You know what I mean? Just
I love
just
that.
the little things.
What a powerful lesson. Once again, parents, I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Now, I have to take you here. I've got to take you here. There is this beautiful, joyful, passionate side that comes with that big old smile and that champion of Dawn Harper-Nelson. But there is also that alter ego of Dawn of Dawn Harper-Nelson. When you step up to that line, and you and I talked about it. I love talking to Jay Gadd about this. Tell us about the alter ego, where it's important to understand the power of your mind to flip that switch and to go to that deep, dark place where you know nobody can beat you.
You almost don't want to have this conversation with everyone because everyone doesn't understand it. I'm in a space. Look, even my tone is changing. I'm in a space where I'm okay. They don't understand, but I am an absolute monster. I could care less about you for 12 seconds. I feel so bad for you that you have to line, because I'm sure that your dream will not survive right now. Mine is absolutely going to survive. I am so clear with that. From 2008 until 2016, there's 3 spots. Remember I told you? I took a spot every year. So that means only 2 spots are open. And that is my mentality. Once again, they're like, oh my goodness, it's the hardest team to make. Yeah, for them. Like I am, because you have to. First of all, I train way too hard. Bobby kills me every day. So you think that I'm going to go out here and give you an inch, an ounce? Man, whatever. Listen, you should have showed something else. The hurdles, I think the 100's wide open, but it's not over here. Like I have to, in a sense, want to murder you for 12 seconds, and then I get done. I'm like, good job, girl. That was such a good race. But I'm really in this mood because I won. Like if I didn't, I'm like, Dawn, you got to find a way to calm down and figure out what's going on, because you have to. When that gun goes, it's not even when the gun goes off. It's actually before, in the warm-up area. Sometimes I was like, I don't even want music, because I need to. I'm talking to Dawn up here. I don't want the music. I don't want to drown it out with, what someone else is saying. What am I saying on this day? Like, what type of beast am I today? I don't like Kendrick Lamar, Drake, Diddy. No, they talking nonsense. I'm talking about today, the work that I put in. They don't know the work I put in.